Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me back. This is Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am here with you. No Soundbites Allowed. We're going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to take a slightly different track on how we're going to start the show. So, bear with me.
Good plan. We should be able to pull it off this time. What do you think, Abdul? Can you give me a number crunch real quick?
Yeah, give me a sec. I'm coming up with 32.33, repeating, of course, percentage of survival.
That's a lot better than we usually do.
All right, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leeroy Jenkins!
Roy, you were just stupid as hell.
Okay. At least I have chicken.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you're wondering, what does Leeroy Jenkins from 2005, a term that's so popular now, people who don't even know where it came from, has to do anything? Okay? An idea that is, 15 years old now? What does Leeroy Jenkins have to do with anything I'm about to talk about? You're going to find out. So, the answer is it's cancel culture. And I want to talk about cancel culture because it's in the news today, and I'm going to explain what I'm getting at. So, what is cancel culture? Before we do anything else, what is this cancel culture? Well, according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, the answer is that it is it's a verb to cancel people, in particular celebrities, politicians, or anyone who who takes up space in the public consciousness. To cancel someone means to stop giving support to that person. The act of canceling could entail boycotting an actor's movies or no longer reading or promoting a writer's works. The reason for cancellation, and this is the part that I really want to emphasize here, the reason for cancellation can vary, but it is usually due to the person in question having expressed an objectionable opinion or having conducted themselves in a way that is unacceptable, so that continuing to patronize that person's work leaves a bitter taste. Now, let's really stop a second, okay? That's cancel culture. It is objectionable opinions. It is someone who is unacceptable. Perhaps you might say deplorable. And it is depriving them of a livelihood. That's what cancel culture is. And we see that all over the place. We've seen cancel culture where it has gone out, and we've seen it affect various people. But in particular, what we're seeing right now is, as of Tuesday, and a letter came out on the, and it was produced in, where was that? Oh God, I forgot the name of the organization. Harper's Magazine. Came out in Harper's Magazine on Tuesday with 150 predominantly left-leaning public figures of all kinds going out and signing this open letter. An open letter saying that we have to be careful about free speech, about silencing free speech. Now, that's a big issue I've talked about many, many times. In the many ways that we see free speech is consistently being eroded in this nation. And the fact that that's chilling, that's horrifying. And I don't care if you don't pay attention to politics. It's in your entertainment, it's in video games, it's in your workplace, especially when we're seeing cancel culture is being used. They're using the free speech to be able to deprive people of their lives and their ability to make money. And more importantly, to train people that unless you want this happen to you, you have to comply. You have to be subservient. You have to be silent. And that should trouble everyone. Now, as much as we see this, and this is from the BBC, and this is their article came out a little over 9 hours ago, where they're talking about J.K. Rowling, a very well-known left-leaning author who's one of the 150 people who signed this free speech document. And the document includes Noam Chomsky. Okay? Noam Chomsky. You know how far left you have to be Noam Chomsky? How about the feminist Gloria Steinem? You know how far left they are? These are the people who signed this document. These are the people who came out and said, hey, we're seeing cancel culture and it is going too far. This is insane. This is a danger. In fact, they also had individuals like Salman Rushdie, who also has suffered from cancel culture, which in this case took the form of fanatical Muslims trying to kill him. He still has death threats to this day for a book that he wrote. Well, there's more. Now, one of the things I notice about this, even in this discussion of a letter that has gotten a lot of criticism, that has a lot of people speaking up and saying, you can't say that. How dare you attack the cancel culture? We see that even in these documents from the BBC, okay, from the BBC itself, we see that what they're talking about is even more of the cancel culture than the reinforcement of a more socialist ideology being put on to people. Okay? Look at the letter. It goes on to, what does this letter say? And what's the interjection? What's the ad that they pop into here to talk about a letter? This is an article talking about free speech and protecting people. And what do they put in? What unites young people against Obama and Trump? Well, that's an interesting thing to put in there. Right after it just mentions the free exchange of information and ideas being the lifeblood of a liberal society. I'll get to that. And he goes, we have to uphold the values of a robust and even caustic counter speech from all quarters. What has that got to do with uniting young people against Obama and Trump? What else does the BBC say? Well, the BBC also goes on to put in another couple of interesting quotes. When the letter, as they're quoting it, says, we are already paying the price in greater risk aversion among writers, artists, journalists who fear for their livelihoods if they depart from the consensus or even lack sufficient zeal in agreement. And then they talk about racism in statues, the toxic legacy of empire. That's a very left-leaning, a very unique point of view. They go on to talk about the stories behind the statues targeted in protests. So at the same time that you're saying people shouldn't be disallowed, that this letter by 150 artists, writers, figures, political figures, almost all from the left, are out there saying, we've got to watch out. This is chilling people. This is stopping people from being able to express themselves in entertainment, in politics, in life. And they're talking about, hey, statues can be racist. History is racist. It's a toxic legacy of an empire. They're kind of reinforcing the very thing that these guys are saying, watch out for. This is terrifying. So then, I want to get to what's the actual letter say. And the letter, as it appeared in Harper's Magazine, and it starts off, first sentence, fine. Our cultural institutions are facing a moment of trial. Powerful protests for racial and social justice are leading to overdue demands for police reform, along with wider calls for greater equality and inclusion across our society, not the least in higher education, journalism, philanthropy, and the arts. Fair enough. But this needed reckoning also has intensified a new set of moral attitudes and political commitments that tend to weaken our norms of open debate and toleration of differences in favor of ideological conformity. Well, that's interesting, because I agree. And it's true. Because you can't speak anymore. you can't have an idea. And if you do have an idea, if you share that idea, well, you get a bunch of people kind of like this guy. Oh, there it is. This guy right here, Messiah Andrews. I'll show you that image real quick. Where is he? This guy, Roderick Douglas, likely known as Messiah Andrews. And what's he talking about? Well, look at his last statement on there. Do you see that answer he says at the bottom? Yeah. Tell me that's supposed to make people feel like they can vote. Like that's supposed to make people feel like they can express their ideas without being attacked. That they can have a political idea that's different than someone else. That they're going to be called racist and told to shut up. And that's what they're saying here. We have to watch out for that. That's horrible. How can there be such an absolutist view that any other voice is a danger? And I have to believe it. I do believe it. Now, this article goes on to say in the next comment, next paragraph, and this is a part that really, really makes me laugh here, because the free exchange of information and ideas, the lifeblood of a liberal society, is daily becoming more constricted. Hang on. Let's stop here. What are you talking about? The lifeblood of a society, not a liberal society, a society, is about the free exchange of information and ideas. And every society that has choked off the ability to exchange information and ideas has quickly become a non-existent society in the history of mankind. That's just a fact. Free speech is part of life. You can't have life without free speech. And they seem to agree with it, but they can't help themselves from being able to throw in there, hey, but the right is wrong. They're saying, oh, you got to have free speech and we have to tolerate differences, even differences that we don't agree with vehemently. And then they go and say, but except if it's on the right, the right's still bad. The right is still evil. They're still horrible people. What are you saying here? Either you believe that cancel culture is a bad thing, or you believe that it's not. Either you believe in having free speech, and you think that when people don't have free speech, when cancel culture takes that away from people, that it's a terrible thing, or you don't. And saying that, well, but the right is horrible, they're evil, they're wrong, these are bad people, but we need free speech. Well, wow, guys. What a wonderful statement about freedom of speech and thought. Take out that liberal in there. Take out these ideas that it's about Donald Trump, because it's not. Cancel culture isn't about Donald Trump. It's about silencing people on the other side. And we've seen this a lot. We've seen this, did you know? Orcs are evil and they are racist. If you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, according to this article, an abstract, why is the only good orc a dead orc? It's an abstract about a fictional conversation in the 1970s that details how the Lord of the Rings is racist. Bet you didn't know that. I can tell you Tolkien didn't know that. And it's completely stupid because orcs, a completely made up race in a completely made up world, have nothing to do with race. They're mystical beings. They're elves, for God's sakes. They're twisted elves, but they are racist now. And if you disagree with that, you must be a racist too. You must be fascist. That's what the left has been telling us. And they wanted to cancel, and they take away from people from playing video games or reading books that have orcs in them, because that's just racist. We saw that this happened to Kevin Hart, as you may recall.
Not long after he got the gig, critics almost immediately started blasting the popular actor and comedian for old tweets and comedy routines they say were homophobic. Hart initially refused to apologize, and then just hours later, he called it quits.
That's it. Kevin Hart, gone. He had the lifetime opportunity to go up, do the Oscars. He's being recognized for his capabilities, his qualities, and oops, you said something that someone didn't like, that was objectionable. That someone was, what was that saying again? Going back to Merriam-Webster's? Oh yes, that's right. Something that was unacceptable. That's an objectionable opinion. Really? Really? Poor Kevin Hart. He made a joke. Good or bad joke doesn't matter. His job is to make jokes. Comedians tend to make jokes about things that are difficult to speak about. Sometimes they make bad jokes. Sometimes they make good jokes. Often, they make jokes that criticize our society and make us look at it in a new way. And we have, Lenny Bruce and so many others, Robin Williams, so many others, who make us look at the world in a very unique way and make us question these things as we laugh. Well, what about Game of Thrones? Did you know Game of Thrones is racist and it's anti-immigrant? And they wanted to get rid of it. Is anti-immigrant. Did you know that? Did you know that Game of Thrones was about immigration? And that it's a statement on immigration policy? Did you know that? Because I didn't. I didn't know that I was watching Game of Thrones to learn about politics and international immigration policy. That this was a story about illegal immigrants and regular immigrants. Since when? I don't know. That's a brand new thing to me. But according to WM Magazine, this was all about immigration. In fact, now think about that. There are millions of people who are fans of Game of Thrones. And they're talking about, now it's something that can be canceled because you shouldn't watch it. Because, and this was back in 2019, you shouldn't watch it because it's about evil anti-immigrant racists. Really? Really? Is that what it's come to? Even in our colleges, it was in the Wall Street Journal. In the Wall Street Journal, a Twitter mob took down an administrator at Michigan State. Stephen Sue lost his job, had to resign because people didn't like what he had to say, because he had an objectionable opinion. And that's just unacceptable. That is deplorable. Wow. He had to quit his job. He had to resign because people didn't like it. They had their feelings hurt because he had an opinion, an idea that was different than what they had. In fact, coming back to Leeroy Jenkins, Leeroy has to be canceled. They have to cancel Leeroy Jenkins. That's gone. How dare you support Leeroy Jenkins? Because according to, this is from Stanford University, the Stanford EDU, and under this, I'm going to move it over a little bit. There we go. So according to this, in their discussion on the psychology of anonymity in video games, under the cons, the problems with avatars, they go on into citing Leeroy Jenkins. Because the story of Leeroy Jenkins in World of Warcraft, a video game, that World of Warcraft is infamous for Leeroy Jenkins as being a screw up in the game. This is a bad thing because it brings the pressure, potentially harmful to gamers of a younger age or gamers with less self-esteem. This is the problem. It could be potentially harmful to gamers of a young age or gamers with less self-esteem. And the way to counteract this is to create a Bill of Rights. Yes, a video game of rights, because you have an avatar in the game. Because you have a character you can see in the game, that character in the video game must be given rights. rights similar to yours. Can you believe that? And if you don't, the answer is also elimination. To eliminate the games, eliminate the multiplayers. This is the cancel culture. Eliminate the games, eliminate the multiplayer options of the games, or just eliminate the online chat. This is a simple solution. Now, they are talking about griefing, but they're talking about more than just griefing. They're talking about something that is objectionable, that they don't feel is deplorable. It is unacceptable. And if you cannot give your video game character rights, well then get rid of the game. Really? Is this the answer? How is this not cancel culture? This is cancel culture in action. Remove these things. You must either comply or remove them. Cancel culture is absolutely dangerous because free speech, as defined by the United States courts, free speech is more or less about being able to engage in symbolic speech, to at times use offensive words and phrases to convey a political message. It's to be silent if you want to be. But it's not to incite actions that would harm others. That's the one that I really want to get into. To incite actions that would harm others. One of the other things that they don't mention that I believe is that free speech is to protect the speech you don't like. The very speech that is about cancel culture. That speech which is objectionable opinions and unacceptable. Because there is no way to define what is objectionable to everyone. Everyone has a different feeling about it. But they want to make that point. So I can tell you this. When I was attacked and told that I'm not black enough, that's free speech. And I don't want Kymel Yard or the organization he stands for, which is Black Lives Matters, to be canceled. That would be wrong. That would be denying him free speech. That would take away from his rights. I want him to speak. I also want to make sure that people are able to clearly see what he's saying about this free speech. What is he doing with it? You should be able to see that. When he says that someone isn't black enough and therefore they don't deserve a vote, you should know that and know that he is trying to influence you by saying that you are only accepted if you follow the rules, their rules. And I think it's very important. So let me wrap this up, because going back to Leeroy Jenkins, Leeroy is racist. That's a guy who's doing a black voice, a guy who has a pretty much black name, who's a screw up, and he's talking about chicken. And you know what? Even though it's been swept, it's part of the common pop culture, you have to give that up. You can't accept, that's just not acceptable. And I'm sure cancel culture is going to come after him. And they're going to support guys out there, kind of like this one, Masai, who are able to use objectionable terms, but it's because it's against someone on the right. But you know what? I have a thought about that. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Why is it that you're so involved in this story? Why is it you're trying to report so much about this? Oops. And I have to say, it's the same reason that Dr. Martin Luther King spoke up. The same reason that I use that quote. Because silence does not benefit anyone. The silence in the face of those who are bad, the silence of those who are good. And I'm not assigning good or bad to anyone, but that thought is clear. If we are silent, we don't help anyone. Nothing improves. Good people don't get to live better lives, and bad people don't stop living bad lives, because of the silence of those who could affect that. Let me say, when I look at the letter on justice and open debate, quite honestly, it's a letter about free speech. Not speech on the left, not speech on the right. It's about free speech. Let's take out all of the crap that's in there, and there's a lot. Let's stop trying to demagogue at the same time that we warn people about demagogues. And let's be just very direct and honest with each other. The more cancel culture is out there, the more that we say, you can't say that because it hurts my feelings, the less we have of free speech, and the more that hurts our entire society. I don't believe people should attack the 150 people who were in here. I think Noam Chomsky, I don't agree with him. He should not be silenced. We shouldn't cancel any of them. But at the same time, we should recognize this is real. This is a problem. And being silent about it isn't helping anyone. Don't cancel Leeroy Jenkins. Don't cancel J.K. Rowling or Noam Chomsky. But definitely speak up when someone else says, we have to. That's where the danger is. Well, let me let you go with that thought. Hopefully it made a lot of sense. Maybe it didn't. But we'll talk more soon. I look forward to your comments. And otherwise, I want everyone to be well. This is Michael Voss. You've been listening to No Soundbites Allowed. I hope you have a great day.